Today, we have somebody who's broken the regular path and traditions, chosen her calling. Such a pleasure to have the jazz sensation from New Orleans.
As soon as I saw the piano, I just started playing. And I did not stop.
Wow.
Because I don't believe that we were born to check boxes and live like clones in a society. I don't believe that. So I told my parents, look, you raised a rebel. This is how it's going to be. I think sustainability and having authenticity go hand in hand. You can fake it for a couple of years, but then you would quit. There are so many venues that don't pay artists unless you're the top. What is hard is if you want to be like, I want to be the next Madonna. I'm like, be the next you. That is the hard part.
If today somebody wanted to take a career in music, what will your advice to them be? Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of the VWomen Project, a podcast that focuses on helping women navigate through work and life. It is our endeavor to bring to you mentors and inspiring women who have accomplished in various fields. And today we have somebody who's broken the regular path and traditions and chosen her calling and followed her dreams, if I may say so. Such a pleasure to have the jazz sensation from New Orleans here in Bombay at home, Charu. Such a pleasure to meet, and so thankful that you literally, kind of fitted us into your busy schedule.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Really.
Thank you, Charu. Charu, you're a 4-time performer at the Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible achievement in its own. So congratulations, and
Can
you speak to us about that journey, Charu?
Oh my God, it's been amazing. I've wanted to perform there ever since I was a child. And the fact that I got to do it 4 times is just really, really remarkable. Every time I perform there, almost every single album I debut at Carnegie Hall. I have now people who just wait for that show every year. It is the most acoustically perfect space. We don't use any microphones, nothing. No microphones. Nothing, no amplification.
Oh.
It's a pure sound on stage, and then we carry the entire program through. And I have really connected with the audience because I play in the smallest hall in Carnegie Hall. Carnegie Hall is 3 halls. I play the smallest hall because it has like a jewel box-like effect and a rapport with the audience.
Wow.
So it feels like an intimate chamber ensemble.
Chamber concert.
And that's so special in jazz is you get to connect with the audience. So that's what I've loved performing there. The staff all know me now, which is amazing, and it's very special.
Incredible.
Yeah,
The girl from Chennai performing there I feel a little bit of pride.
it's amazing. It's amazing.
So following this format, we just kind of step back and understand how your childhood was and what music meant to you in those years. How was the formative years? How did it shape up?
So I was born in Madurai, India.
Oh.
And when I was very young, when I was about 5 years old, my father got an amazing job opportunity in Africa, of all places.
Oh, okay.
In Nigeria.
Okay.
He was the CEO of a record label.
Oh.
And the house that we stayed in had a piano.
Okay.
It was amazing because every night he would come home with vinyl in all genres. Jazz, classical, hip-hop, pop. And we would put it on the turntable and listen to music. And my mother remarked that she'd never seen anything like it. As soon as I saw the piano, I just started playing. And I did not stop.
Wow.
Without any training, without anything. She said I was like almost like the glue. My fingers glued to the keys. Yes.
Oh.
Then she said, okay, this is something very unusual. Let's start putting her in classes. So my first training in music was in Africa. even though as a child I'd heard my grandmother was an amazing singer, Carnatically trained. Even though I'd heard that in my house and she taught me how to play the veena and everything, my first brush with the piano was in Africa.
Oh.
Then I started playing all these very complex pieces very quickly. And then when we came back to India, I was about 9 years old. My parents put me with the top music teacher in Chennai that they could find. They asked everybody. And then I started quickly giving lots of concerts, winning lots of competitions, did all my Trinity College and everything, grade 8 and everything. Won the top prize in the whole world when I was 14. And then I said, you know, I played such complex pieces when I was like 9, 10, 11, 12. Like we're talking very virtuosic Chopin and Liszt and Brahms, etc. Then my piano teacher said, this is just really crazy. You know, we have such a crazy, intense talent in the house that I said that I wanted to take it and grow in another country because I'd sort of tapped out all the resources here in India. So that was my earliest formative years.
Wow. So you come from a musical family, Charu.
Yes, yes.
So your grandmother sang and played the veena, is it?
She did. Yeah,
Okay.
she was kind of like a Lata Mangeshkar in her own way.
Oh.
Really, really incredible voice.
Oh.
She did not pursue it because she ended up having a family and 4 daughters, and it was very intense. So she decided to hit pause because, as you can see with my career, I have a daughter, but I barely see her. I'm on the road. I'm performing masterclass. It's so intense that it's almost like it's like a monastic life in a way. Like you have to marry the calling. And a lot of women, when they have families, they can't do that. They don't want to do that. So it is actually a sacrifice that you have to, and a choice you have to make.
Another interesting thing I see is, you know, even though it's a traditional South Indian family, there's exposure to a wide range of music.
Yes. Which is the unusual part.
Which is the unusual part.
Very unusual. This is why I'm very lucky because my father, given his position there, I had a very unusual upbringing. I had in my head probably all the different genres by the time I was 9.
Wow.
Everything from jazz to pop to classical. All the repertoire, which many people do not get in a traditional Indian household.
Right.
So I got very lucky because of his job.
So prodigal talent and the right kind of exposure,
the
circumstances coming in together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from Chennai to Princeton, Charu, that was the next milestone.
Next big leap.
Big leap. So how did that happen, and how did you?
How
did you navigate that?
I was very stubborn. I knew that, you know, I had sort of mastered as much as I could here in India. My teacher was amazing, but, you know, I had performed in all the top venues, won all the top prizes, toured extensively. And then I had to really decide there's more learning to be made. And the only way I could learn more was to go where the music was born.
Happens.
Yeah. So I told my parents I really didn't want to stay, or I don't know how much I could grow staying here and pursuing Western classical music. And I wanted to actually go to the West, which was very unusual at that time for unmarried women to go for their undergraduate degree.
Oh, you went for the undergrad?
I went for undergraduates because a lot of women did get married and come for their masters, and that was okay. But to do it for an undergrad was unusual.
Yeah.
So I told my parents, look, you raised a rebel. This is how it's going to be. And, you know, I was always rebellious from the day I was born, I think. I always wanted to change the norm. And I can't explain why. It was in my DNA. So my parents said, okay, well.
Any oppositions or?
No, their whole terms were if you got a scholarship, because it's expensive, and you got into a good school, we're not going to be the obstacles to stop you. So that was that. So I crammed for the SATs and I did all of that, applications, etc. And I actually got a full scholarship to both Princeton and Stanford.
Wow.
which is
Wow.
incredible.
Wow.
I mean, when I
Yeah.
retrospect, the top schools,
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky. And then I chose.
Mm.
I chose to go to Princeton.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you study at Princeton?
I did music, but I also majored in classics, which is Greek and Latin, because I loved languages. But I did minor in music, which kind of like was a major.
Oh, yeah.
And I performed a lot. I had my work played by orchestras. I had my work played by Yo-Yo Ma for a big project.
So
I was
you
working on.
had started composing by then.
I had started composing when I was 5, 6, but I never actually recorded or had other people record my work.
Understood.
Composition and improvisation was something I did naturally. I don't remember a single day where I wasn't composing and I wasn't improvising. But the problem is nobody knew it because it wasn't ever recorded or it wasn't ever performed until I went to college. Then I started recording and collaborating with people, and it was only until recently I actually recorded in a studio and put my work out. So, but the thing had been happening since I was doing music.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you play the piano primarily,
Yes.
Charu?
And
you
compose.
sing.
And I
Compose and play the piano.
I don't really sing.
Okay.
I have singers on my album,
Okay.
and I write all the lyrics in my music, and I play the piano.
Okay.
But I have a very soft voice.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I decided to play on my strengths.
Makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that kind of talent. So tell us something post Princeton. How did two things on my mind before I forget. One is, what did the practice entail when you say you were on the piano all the time?
7 to 8 hours a day.
7 to 8 hours a day.
To play these complex pieces and to be a concert pianist, that's what you need. There's no going, that's like back behind it. It's like exercises and etudes and all the different piano literature, very complex pieces, passages that would take so much time to learn. And I would, take a composer and study the composer in and out. So by the time I was 13 or 14, playing really complex, amazingly virtuosic pieces. And that took so much time to practice. So now it's almost like I don't even have half the amount of practice time that I used to have as a child. But because of all of that background that I'd put, so much of the music is seamless for me. I can just pick it up and play.
That's quite wonderful to hear. So, and inspiring. So the effort that you've put in, it comes back to you.
Definitely.
In terms of returns.
Oh, there's no question. Practice does show.
Practice does.
And early practice and childhood practice shows so much. There are adults who come and pick up the piano and instrument at a later life. It's just never the same as putting in those.
So an early start is very important.
Yeah.
Because I come from, even though I don't sing, we come from a Carnatic music family. And so when you're talking about these complex pieces and all that, of course, you must be familiar with the Carnatic format as well, but the basics are reinforced time and again. You go back to the Sarali, you go back to the Gente.
Exactly.
So is that how it is?
In a way, in Western classical music, yes, in a way, you do go back to like the Bach and you reinforce, but there's so much literature for the piano. It has the most extensive literature in Western music is the piano.
Oh, okay.
So there's endless amount of pieces.
Okay.
It's almost like never ending.
Okay.
So you cannot ever extinguish that kind of repertoire because there's always some new passage to learn. There's a new composer to discover. And no two programs really are alike or should be alike. Have an extensive repertoire. Those kinds of repetition and performance have helped me build such a big knowledge bank in music in my head that it's influenced my work.
Right.
But yes,
right.
It is kind of like exploring the Indian classical world in its own way.
There is the rigor, there is the composition.
It's the rigor.
It's the rigor.
And the discipline.
And
for sure. No question. No question.
So coming back to the US stint, so tell us so life after Princeton, What happened in those years?
I actually ended up getting a master's in music at an amazing conservatory, Manhattan School of Music. But at that point, I had sort of like, I felt like I had done it all. I had done orchestration, scores, I had composed pieces for orchestra and voice and etc. That I got a little jaded in masters in music school because I didn't feel inspired.
Understand.
My music ended up sounding like everybody else's, what I was producing. And that made me unhappy because I wanted to be very original and very authentic voice. And I was getting a lot of, pressure to put out music.
But I've heard of this as well.
Yes. Yeah. And I said, yeah, of course I can compose, but I'm going to sound like everybody else. And that's not what I want to do. And then at that point, and I didn't know the music scene at all. I was a kid in college who had just pretty much been in college and school, right? I didn't have any real life experience.
With the piano.
And with the piano.
Yeah.
So it's not like I went on a journey down the Appalachian Trail or discovered, no, nothing. So,
this was the world.
This tunnel vision. So I didn't understand the world. I didn't know what my options were. So, but I told my music professors, I said, this isn't it. I haven't found myself yet. This is not my authentic voice. And they're like, well, we're kind of disappointed because we wanted you to see you, go into be like a big Hollywood composer or this composer and that composer. I said, yeah, but those are already been done. And that's what I told them. I said, why do you want me to be like someone else that has like a carbon copy,
Yeah.
There's enough people doing the carbon copy. Like and I was so fiercely independent way back then and even now, that independence was that thread, that connection.
So you needed creative independence at this point of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because my whole point was, I had studied enough of the compositional repertoire to know that Beethoven became Beethoven because of his enormous risk-taking and contributions to the repertoire. Debussy became Debussy because he created sounds that did not really exist. He opened up the world. And I wasn't opening up anything to anybody. It was the same thing over and over and again. I said, this cannot be what I want to do. And for that reason. And they're like, well, we understand. So they're like, good luck. And after that, I actually, believe it or not, worked on Wall Street.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge switch because I was heavily in debt and I needed to make money. And I had taken some internships in economics and finance, and I ended up going and working at a top bank.
So you did music and masters, and then you did internships in economics and finance?
No. Well, I was in Princeton, the summers. I would also do some economic internships, just
to keep it as a backup.
Oh, okay. Because my father was a little bit more practical than this. Like you got to do something, kid. That's got to, so there's a lot of debt piling up. So, and I did work on Wall Street, and I was miserable, but I did it. I paid my debts off.
How many years was this?
Almost 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole journey and self-discovery there was not exactly what I had hoped.
Which part of the bank, if I may ask?
I was investment banker.
Oh, you were an investment banker. How cool is that, Charu?
Yeah. Cool or crazy, depends. But it gave me discipline. It gave me enormous amounts of drive and discipline. Not that I didn't have that before, but
it gives you structure.
Yes, it gave me something that I don't think I would have had if I had just stayed in music. It gave me a business mindset, which for a lot of artists is just not there. In a way, it's good or bad, but they just don't have it because they've not been exposed to that way of thinking. It's how do you monetize your music? How do you monetize anything? Because that is key to survival, right?
Right.
So in banking, it was all about that.
Right.
In the artistic profession, it was not at all.
Nothing about it. Yeah.
So I went from 180 degrees, just had to rewire my brain and think of everything as like how to do this, how to monetize, how to sell this. That must have subconsciously sat with me in a good way, because I think everybody needs to know how to do that. And then I guess I'm a polymath, because I also love to write. I became a reporter and a journalist. For many years. I've contributed to the New York Times and Architectural Digest, etc., like a step back. Because really, at that point, it's not that I gave up music. I still had it.
Yeah, I don't think you could have ever given up music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was still performing. But there was something in my soul that said, I need more, I need more, I need more. This isn't it. And my parents were scratching their head. I don't understand. She went to Princeton. She went to the best bank. She's now reporting for the New York Times. What more does she want? Like, seriously, most people would be so happy with this. And they were like totally scratching their head. It's like, I don't know. Either this girl's crazy or she's got something. I don't know what's happening.
So there was unhappiness.
Yes.
There was restlessness.
There was restlessness, because it was like, okay, again, and I won top awards for the New York Times. I got like gold medals reporting, etc. It was just like so crazy. But I think I was unhappy or a little restless because I still felt like I was walking the steps of a path that had been done by so many people, like by millions. I hadn't found something that was uniquely me. And that, I think, that has been the thing. Like when I was a young girl, I said, and I listened to Tchaikovsky and I listened to all these composers, I said, I want to find a voice that's uniquely me. And that's what most artists aspire to, right? When you see a Picasso painting, you immediately like, that can only be by Picasso. You see Impressionist painting that
and a Van Gogh.
On a Van Gogh.
Yeah.
It is completely their own.
Yes.
But it also shows something called integrity and authenticity.
Right.
They were not sacrificing their voice or their vision for anybody.
Right.
At all.
Right.
No matter what happened. And I loved that. I thought that is the mark of a true artist. Is like, you can't compromise. Just because someone gives you a palace, you can't just go live in it. You have to make sure that that's something you want to do. You know, you can't just, and that same thing, the reason why investment banking, like I could have made millions and I could have sat there, but it wasn't uniquely me. Like I had not earned it. I felt I had not earned it. I guess that's the right word for it. I had not earned it.
Yeah.
And so I still report, which is great. And I
what
love
do you write about? Charu?
Mostly travel. I love travel. So I've reported on a lot of travel stories. So, but then after I went on an assignment to New Orleans, that's not where I live, by the way. I live in New Jersey, but I got influenced by New Orleans.
Yeah.
I went to a show by Preservation Hall just like 5 years ago, around now. And it just changed my life forever. I listened to jazz by Preservation Hall and I said, this is it. I finally knew I wanted to do jazz, but I didn't want to do it in the same old way that everyone was doing. I wanted to bring my heritage into it. And that's when I started composing jazz and recording it. And that's when I started to weave ragas with jazz. And then
the whole world,
the whole thing.
Open.
It became my path became like more crystal clear than it had ever been. I said, this feels completely right. I feel like this is what I was supposed to do.
15 years?
Yeah.
15 years to get to that?
Easily.
To get to that point?
Yeah. And sometimes it takes that long. But the result is just that, I feel like I'm creating something that nobody's really heard.
Yeah.
That nobody's ever done.
Yeah.
That nobody can, like I just taught a master class at Whistling Woods. The kids would just flow. They was like, I cannot believe this exists. And that makes me happy because I feel like that means, I can teach people, I can influence and contribute in my own way. It's all about contributions and legacy, right? When you study even anything from science to mathematics, is what have you done to open up the field is always the question that people ask. It's not so much what awards you've done or whatever. where has your influence? What is your unique contributions? And I feel like I'm finally able to say I'm actually contributing to something that has not been done before. So as a result, people are learning from my style. I'm able to create something totally new and experiment meaningfully, given years of experience. So it took all those years and journeys and travel and everything and all of those influence. But I feel like I finally
found
something.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, really inspiring. Really, just amazing.
Thank you.
listening
It's
to
just it's been a lot of sacrifices. There's no question, because I met my husband in music school at Manhattan School of Music. He's such a sweetheart. He's a trombonist. And then in the middle of my banking career, we got engaged and married. And so it was wonderful.
Okay.
It opened so many possibilities. But I was not content to be the also-ran kind of person.
That very clearly comes out,
Yeah,
Charu.
yeah.
I think in the conversation that very clearly comes out.
Yeah.
And the search for authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity. That's
I think
it.
that's been the search for your own calling, search
Yeah.
for your own authenticity.
That is probably the key. Yeah, because the thing is,
And you've been tireless about it.
Yes.
I think that's so
Yes.
inspiring.
very
You-
tireless.
Yeah, you didn't let it go. And then,
I am not the kind of person who can sleep at night having compromised that. I would feel like I would be lying to myself, and I can't live with a lie.
so you were talking about the authenticity and the search for your
True voice.
true voice.
Yeah, because when we think of even a career or a field like photography, right? There are photographs, and then there's like an Ansel Adams photograph.
Right.
There's no comparison,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have a photograph, and then you have someone who has really seen the world with his own eyes,
Right.
and nobody else's influence. Of
Right.
course, years of training,
Training and all of that.
but that can only be Ansel Adams.
Yeah.
That has always impressed me,
Mm.
And so we live in an age where very few people have the courage, time, luxury to see the world with their own eyes, really and truly. Because we have commitments of career, family, obligations, compulsions,
Yeah.
societal pressures,
Right.
so much of it that, in my view, chip away from your authenticity. They really do. They chip away from your authenticity. You're not your true self. You're always putting on a show to be someone that society wants you to be. So I got married because everyone said, it's time to get married. I love my husband, but I don't want to get married. But I felt like, okay, it would look really horrible if I didn't get married.
So tick the box.
Tick the box. But what ends up happening, my husband's a sweetheart. He's been super supportive. I got lucky. But when I went into finance, I knew I had to pay off my loans. I did that. But I was intrinsically unhappy there. So what happens when people don't have the luxury of choosing, and they get stuck, and they get resentful, and they get angry, and their creativity suffers? It gets stifled, really. I've seen this time and time and again. And what ends up happening is you end up producing something because you are supposed to, but it's never really soulful. It's never really authentically you. And then in the end, nobody benefits.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Because you're not telling a true story. You're checking a box, and nobody wanted to hear that. I mean, if you think about, say, Michael Jackson's Thriller, when it came out, people were just shocked.
Yeah.
There's been nothing like this.
Yeah.
He's been one of my all-time heroes. Absolutely, because he just did not care. It takes a lot of guts
To go the
to
unconventional
say
path.
you don't care. You're going to do what is right for you. It really does. Because, it's like saying industry has been around for a long time, but I'm going to do my own thing in my own voice and in my own path, whether I have one listener or 1 million listeners, you know. And sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not. Jackson Pollock is an example. I mean, his whole paintings were crazy, but it was uniquely him. So I'd always admired people who were very
unconventional.
Yes, adamant about their authentic self. Because I don't believe that we were born to check boxes and live like clones in a society. I don't believe that. I believe that, you know, we really, if we had the courage to speak up and do something amazing, the whole world would see that. You know?
Yeah. I have 2 questions here, Charu. So one, is it given to all?
That's a really good question. I don't think it is, because I think you have to really be a fighter to want this. I have a lot of friends who have, you know, the passion and talent, but they don't want to see it through. They're like, I have friends who were
what
like,
can be the blocks? Like, you know,
well, because it's so much easier to go to a routine job and say this is a cushy life. Why sacrifice? Today I woke up at 4 o'clock, got on a plane, did a master class, came here, braved the traffic, doing a podcast, doing a rehearsal tomorrow, and doing a gig at the Opera House. And really, at the end of the day, I'm not going to take home a huge bag of gold coins, you know. I'm going to do a show that I love. Why do it? You know, so many people are going to be like, you know what, if we're not going to get paid $1 million, I'm not going to do it. So that could be a viable reason. But for me, that's not an option. That would be like saying you sold your, you know, soul just to make money, and which I did when I was in banking, and look how that turned out. You know, it wasn't for me. So I think sustainability and having authenticity go hand in hand. You can fake it for a couple of years, but then you would quit and you would leave and you wouldn't see that path through. Like music, I've been doing it since I was 5 and I truly love it, and I probably would still do it no matter what.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
The other question to me, slightly unrelated, but you know, I find that you excelled in your music. You went into investment banking. You possibly did very well. I mean, if you had to sustain 4 years in it, you were a top journalist when you went into New York Times. So is there a thread that, you know, when you learn to excel or give so much of yourself into something at a young age, whether it is music or a sports or any art form, it kind of sees you through because you know what it takes to do what you should? Is there a...
I would say the work ethic has just been, I'm like a workhorse. I said, no matter what happens, I'll have to do the work and see it through. Quitting isn't an option for me. If it's such a big project like orchestrating something for an orchestra, I'll stay up, I'll do the needful, consult how many ever people I need to get the work done. Quitting isn't an option because I don't think we are given all of these opportunities every day. I do think that they're precious and they're sacred in a spiritual way, and I think they're always molding us and they're always helping us become better. So the idea of just saying, hey, it's a job doesn't occur to me. For me, it's like it's
whole
this or die. You know, you gotta give it your all.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach a lot of my compositions too. There's no halfway. You know, you gotta give it your all. You really have to be in it 100%. And that's the part that's also a little tough for some people because it's so easy. One of my earliest professors said, it's so easy to hide. You go and you take a job, you hide, you become a number. You go and get your paycheck, you come back home. Nobody's going to ask you how your day was. I'm sure it was great. You build a home, you have a family. You're an artist on a stage. You cannot hide. You're there. You are the reason why people are there.
Yeah.
You can't hide.
Yeah.
And what are you going to show them? Like something that's lukewarm? You've got to give it your all. So it comes with it a lot of responsibilities come with it. And I feel like that's what I've been doing ever since I was a child, is meeting those responsibilities. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. So we touched upon this briefly, but if today somebody wanted to take a career in music, what will your advice to them be if someone's stepping into that path?
I would say do it because you love it. Because I know a lot of friends who win Grammys, who are huge names. They sell out. They're sensations. People ask for their autograph. Not a single person did it because of the fame. Not a single person did it for the money. Not a single person did it for any other reasons except that they can't live without it. I think you have to ask yourself is, can you live without it? And the answer is, I actually cannot possibly live without music. I just don't think I would be able to survive. So if you have that kind of passion and calling, the second thing is you've got to figure out how to do it. Whether to be an artist or to be a composer or to be a teacher. I'm an educator. I have a big music academy. I teach a lot of students. There are many ways and many ways to do a profession. You can become a piano tuner. I know a piano tuner is booked out 6 months in advance. It's such a hugely
rewarding
profession. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the glamorous profession that you see on stage, like a Madonna. It doesn't have to be that. There's a million different jobs that make Madonna, like the recording engineer, production engineer, the mixing engineer, the touring master, the agent, the booking agent. There's so many
the entire industry
jobs.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that going in, because nobody
it's opening up now a lot more.
I don't know if it's opening up. Touring is becoming harder.
Okay.
It is becoming harder because there are so many venues that don't pay artists unless you're the top. And to get to the top, you got to tour a lot. You got to bring a lot of albums out. You got to get lots of #1 chart-topping things. And a lot of venues say, if you don't really sell out or bring a full crowd, we're not going to book you. So it's hard. It's not. I'm not going to lie. It's hard. But I think building an audience with authenticity is what it's about. Because over the long term, they are going to be your fans and your groupies, and you're going to bring that consistency. So in that way, if you have a voice that people want to listen to, it becomes easier. What is hard is if you want to be like, I want to be the next Madonna. I'm like, be the next you. That is the hard part. Being a cover artist or a cover band and doing other pop songs, I mean, you'll get a gig here and there. It's not a sustainable career unless you build your own authentic voice. So I would say that, there's a lot of layers to the industry, but I think that the ones that end up really making it, the ones that end up staying in it, are there because they want to carve an authentic voice in that space.
And not give up.
Give up.
And be at it.
Yes.
Do you ever compare the Indian, the Indian ecosystem and the Western ecosystem? How different is it, or how similar is it when it comes to music?
I do. The irony in India is there's only a handful of fully professional musicians. For everything that we have going on, the percentage of people making a living doing music is extremely tiny. Extremely.
It's much larger in the West?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Much larger. There's people doing music, they're teaching in colleges or concertizing, or there's a variety of things that you could be doing. I think that in India, professional musicians who make a living at it, the percentage is much smaller. But that said, the opportunities are, I think, growing. There's so many things you can do. You can do advertisement work. You can do You can be a touring musician, but you can also do recording, as I said, mixing, mastering. You can manage tours. You can be an arranger, you can be a composer, you can do film composing. So I think the fields in the arts here are growing. The opportunities are growing.
You spoke very validly about monetizing, right? So,
Right.
And I mean, you also took a practical approach of having an economics and finance on this side, even though, I mean, that wasn't the core and that was never keeping you happy.
Right.
Is that something you recommend to the youngsters of today? To have, I mean, let me try and articulate this again. If you have to monetize the music or whatever you do, how does one approach that? Is there a particular path that you think you have understood?
I'm still trying to figure that out because it's a tough one, given that streaming pays so little. And a lot of artists, even the top artists, are really sort of giving up on streaming. I mean, you cannot make a living depending on streaming revenues. Back then you could, based on album revenues and album sales. So what I have done is follow my path and calling of being an educator. I love teaching. So I started my own music academy. I instruct a lot of students, and I have my own school and teachers who go and teach in addition to my touring career. And a lot of musicians do that. They take professorships, etc. But you have to make a living. I mean, there's, at the end of the day, because how are you going to fund anything that you do? You know, if you're lucky enough to, even if you're with a label, there's so many expenses that come with touring, with putting out an album, with putting out social media things. It's just, you have to have some form of income. And going on a gig to gig paycheck is not a long-term viable idea, because it's uneven and you never know what you're going to get. I mean, how do you can't.
You can't predict.
No.
You can't predict things.
That's why I wanted to have my music academy, very regular and practical and a logical complement to what I already do. So I would say that if you found something like that, it would be a good idea.
Good complementary.
So the more creative and the more consistent and the more dependable and more reliable you are, the more professional you are, the better for you, for your career, like any other job.
Like any other. So Charu, who have been your role models in this journey of yours?
I've had so many. I would say, of course, a lot of the jazz greats. What drew me into jazz were people like David Brubeck.
Okay.
And Bill Evans and Miles Davis, who had such incredible elegance with the trio and with the piano work. David Brubeck was a virtuosic pianist, and so was Bill Evans, and they created so much incredible repertoire that we are listening to over and over again. So they were, and Oscar Peterson was a huge influence because of his virtuosity. So many people were from the 1960s.
Okay.
Jazz scene, when it was big and really mainstream in New York.
Okay.
Influenced me. And the modern generation, quite a few of my Grammy peers who win Grammys, who put out records, continue to inspire me so much because they are living their dream in the modern world and making it look so easy. But also reminding me that creativity is still happening now for the future and for the posterity, like new voices and new sounds, and that's just amazing. Jacob Collier is one of them. Jacob Collier's an amazing influence. And I would say that there's been so many pianists who I look up to in the classical world, from Martha Argerich to Emile Gilel, and modern ones like Yuzha Wang, and who every time I hear them make me feel inspired to do more, to do better. I've always admired people who pushed the sonic boundaries while being super elegant and respectful of traditions, which is what my music, I'm hoping, sounds like or inspires. So I've put in a ton of work to make it sound like there was no work. Yeah.
Wow. So, since, jazz as an art form, as a music form, is not something I'm very, very conversant with.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and, kind of pick your brains on the history of jazz.
Sure.
You're talking about the 1960s, it being very
jazz
popular.
Jazz is before 1960s.
Before 1960s.
The birthplace in 1900s.
So what is jazz music to a layman, Charu?
Jazz is a textured melodies and harmonies that are beyond the realm of classical simple chords. A jazz harmonic progression uses chords that most people would consider really out there or complicated, and it consists of improvisation, but over a form. And most of the time, the improvisations are so different every single concert, which makes jazz its completely unique thing every single time you perform the same exact piece. So no two jazz nights are going to be ever the same. Even if you were performing the same set and the same repertoire 2 nights, it would be completely different than 2 classical performances. Because you would go to a classical performances or a pop performance or even a hip-hop performance, I think, and pretty much know what to expect every time because those are the
songs,
notes. And there's certain notations. In jazz, you would never know what's going to happen.
So there's innovation.
There's always
on stage.
On stage, which makes it its own thing, which makes it so beautiful and also terrifying at the same aspect, because sometimes I'll go and revisit the same piece and see my solos. My solos would be so different in Denver compared to like Arizona, compared to Carnegie Hall. And it's the same exact piece. We are improvising over the same harmony and same lead sheet. We call it a lead sheet. So there's structure, but our solos would be so different depending on the energy that night, how much work you've put into your solos. Are you feeling more virtuosic? Do you feel a great rapport with this bassist, or do you like that drummer? I mean, that is so every single performance feels like it's like a different experience.
Okay.
That's what makes jazz.
Is it like
beautiful.
Exploring a rag?
Yes.
It's like exploring. So,
yes.
And how much depth you get into it, it's
that's
beautiful.
why I did the
across.
raga jazz, because there's a lot of parallels. But of course, rags don't have a harmonic history. We only explore it melodically.
What is a harmonic history?
It's the chords and all the
chords.
things that go, and the modulations and over it. But we have a percussion like the tabla, the beats, and then the melodies. But that's what I was telling my master class today. Adding harmonies adds a totally different dimension to the rags. So you have the
free-flowing rags, and then it's overlaid with the harmony.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not so much. My jazz is pretty structured. Like I write my melodies like I would write a jazz lead sheet with a form. This melody comes in, this melody repeats, then there's a new melody that comes in, then we go back to the beginning. So that's like a lead sheet. So you have a structure with a certain, beat, which is what a lot of, the jazz artists I mentioned, like Brubeck, etc., they would have a lead sheet, So mine has a fair bit of structure, except when there's some introduction that's like the alap. But you give that lead sheet to all the players in your group, and they look at it and they're like, okay, I got the melody, I got the harmony. Now what is up?
Creativity.
When we improvise and we have our solos.
Okay.
Then we bring in our own magic.
Wow. And this is what happened 5 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, that moment was Raagas and
Jazz
and your own authentic pieces that started coming up.
Exactly. And now when we So I've taken the jazz concept a little bit further. I've encouraged now all the jazz musicians to improvise as much as they can over the raga.
I heard one of the Beam Plasi
Yeah.
that you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So using the raga notes as much as they can, that's the part that they are learning that is not necessarily so intuitive, because before you're using all the linear notes of a Western system. So you're doing jazz, but I'm trying to make it harmonically and sonically aligned with the raga.
Understand.
That's the difference.
You've mentioned Grammy a couple of times.
Yeah.
So what's your association with Grammy, Charu?
I'm a member of the Recording Academy, and I'm very proud to be a member. It's hard to become a member. They look at your recording output. You have to be recommended by current Grammy members. So I've been recommended by 2 very high, level folks in the Grammys, and that gives you the ability to vote in the Grammys. That gives you the ability to decide who takes home a Grammy.
Oh, wow.
That gives you the ability to put your own albums for consideration to get a nomination or win a Grammy. More than anything, that gives you the opportunity to just
interact with so many.
I mean, I can't tell you how lucky I am to just say, I know these people. They're my friends, and they've taken home a Grammy, and they're inspiring me. And that level of excellence, I never forget. So I always feel very lucky to be a member of that community.
Again, a huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Makes us immensely proud.
Thank you. Thank you.
So wonderful. So where does this urge to compose come from, Charu? Like, what is it within you that needs to get expressed?
I've always, I think it's the determination to bring my own pair of eyes into any situation, or to really give my take on a certain thing. It's to create. And emotionally, that's the only best way I can express myself is through song. So when my dad died, for example, 3 years ago, I created a whole album, Ragas and Waltzes, dedicated to him.
I heard a couple from that.
And it was the only way, the most authentic way I could say, Dad, thank you for the gift of music. I would say that if I even just gave the eulogy or just gave him flowers or something, it would not be as meaningful to me than writing a piece of music. And I have a piece called Waltz for My Father, which unanimously everybody loves. They're like, oh my God, I have tears when I listen to that. So we played in a lot of concerts, and I've had so many people come up to me saying, I thought of my mother, I thought of my father when I was listening to that. I cried. I mean, so to pull people into my emotional world is kind of what happens, because I'm very emotional. But that's also why I end up composing these things that are very,
deeply connecting, deeply.
Yeah. So that's my way of coping in a way with the world. But it's also my way of creating, because I feel I create to be free. I really create to be free, so that I'm not, it's subscribing to another person's image for me. Or process for me. I create so that I can carve my own identity. And I think a lot of artists do that to be free. So I think it is that freedom that I'm creating.
And do you have to navigate it? I mean, do you have to structure it to bring it out in a particular shape or form? Or is it largely just raw?
I try not to overthink the process.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, because the more you feel like you know where you're going, it's a very dangerous thing. I don't think art works like that. I don't think life works in that way. The most amazing things that have happened to me have been accidents, or things that I thought were, okay, let's give it a go. And it turned out to be such an amazing experience. This Jazz and Ragas being one of them, because I went to New Orleans not to do anything except to be on an assignment. But I kept an open mind, and something amazing was born. Because I think, again, it's like being prescriptive and having a dogma. Like, you must take your pills every day, 2 tablets a day. You can't produce Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. It doesn't happen that way. It has to be really internalized and earned. And then something magical like a epiphany or a tipping point happens, and then something beautiful happens. Like, Freddie Mercury's Bohemian Rhapsody was so out of the box. I mean, no one could have prescribed that it would happen. That was his way of composing and dealing with what was happening at that time. So I think it's important not to be super prescriptive and just let it flow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Charu, your work has a lot of collaborations because you're a pianist and you need the entire ensemble with you. So how does that work? How do you go about picking your musicians? How easy is it? What are the hardships involved in it? How do collaborations work?
Collaborations happen when I just listen to something really amazing and I say, I want that person on my next album. It's as simple as that. And I'm working on my first non-jazz album called Nidra, which is all...
Sorry, I didn't get the name.
Nidra.
Nidra.
It's all sleep. It's an album to help us sleep better, really, in a nutshell. It's all using evening ragas. Each one so different, so beautiful. And I've tapped a whole array of different musicians, and I've found a place for each of them. I think collaborations happen when, again, sonically, when I hear something that's that good and I say that I'll have to write something for them, or that's usually what ends up happening. Like I heard Joe play his drums and I said, this is it. It's a beast. I mean, this is I've never heard drumming like this. He's been on my last 2 albums and he always brings it home. And I was just like, you've heard him, right? Yeah. Isn't he incredible?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a distinct...
And there's energy. I mean, there's so much energy.
Yeah. The guy's like off the charts, so much energy. He gives it his all. That's rare. And I think every time I hear something like that, I'm like, I have to write for this person because that's rare. To meet people like that is rare. Because, we can all be very virtuosically good, but to be passionate and great is hard.
Incredible, Charu. So I'm going to stop here and we're going to do a rapid fire. Okay. Just as a favorite stage you've performed on.
I would say Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, it can't be anything else.
It's hard not to say that.
Favorite artist, favorite album?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh my God, I have so many. I would say Take 5 by David Brubeck. Okay. Still a classic to me.
Okay. Your most cherished concert that you've heard in India?
That I've gone and heard.
In India.
When I was very young, I attended a concert by Mandolin Srinivas. Which is absolutely brilliant. In Chennai. Totally changed my life. Yeah. Loved it.
Can imagine.
Yeah.
The electric.
Yes. Again, a performer who had everything but then some.
Yeah.
That's something
extra.
special. Yeah.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? Oh my goodness.
Or favorite column or anything. Favorite something from New York Times maybe.
Yeah, I love the 36 hours. It's like 36 hours to be in a city and the breakdown of places that you could go to.
Okay. Wow, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
I should try and look
that up. Yes, they say 36 hours in Lucknow, 36 hours in Delhi. If you just had 36 hours, what would you do?
What would you do?
That's like it's a gem of a
favorite movie, Charu?
Favorite movie? I would say... well, I was named after Charulata, the movie by Satyajit Ray.
Oh.
And it isn't a gem of a movie.
Okay.
I would say it's one of my favorites. So, But yeah, let's go with that one.
Nice. Your comfort food?
A thali, an Indian thali. I always turn to it.
South Indian or North Indian? We're very particular about that.
I would say South Indian thali.
South Indian thali?
Yeah.
Okay. If not for a jazz musician, what would you have been?
I think I would have been a conductor.
Okay.
I used to conduct a lot of musicals in college, and I love conducting. I love thinking of the whole thing.
Visualize you doing that.
Yeah. I loved it, and I probably would have done that.
Your life's mantra in a line?
Be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't see anything else coming from you.
Be authentic.
So moving on, Charu, this podcast is for women empowerment, So we talk about challenges and diversity in this section. So have you encountered any discrimination or any gender related or any diversity related challenges in your path as a musician or otherwise?
Of course, it's a very hard profession for women. I just think because just to tour, it takes so much stamina. Just almost every single jazz ensemble I've played and jazz concert or tour I've gone to, it's been guys, and you certainly don't see that many female band leaders in jazz, especially from India. It doesn't really happen. It takes a lot of stamina. I've always been told I'm the pretty girl, and you're like, okay, but how do I play? How do I compose? That's the yardstick I want to be measured by. You don't want to be the prettiest one in the band. It feels like a slap in the face. So I think that the industry has to go beyond looking at, what we wear, how we dress, which is all important because, you want to be stylish, and really focus on women as creators and leaders and people who are contributing meaningful ways to jazz. It is changing, but the statistics still are more in favor of men, more men in the jazz field, creating, composing, leading bands, touring the world than compared to women. A lot of women give up because they have family and they don't know how to make a career. Like, I have a 12-year-old daughter. How do you get childcare? How do you, there's pressures of being a good mom. How do you provide and how do you cook and everything and still manage to compose and tour? Luckily, there's a lot more grants that fund now babysitting and childcare, etc. But that's just like one or two outlying incidents as opposed to the whole industry changing,
Right.
Like, we should have concert halls that have like on-site childcare and nannies for the performers. That would be a great change. I see that paving the way for women to get more into the field, And so I feel that it is a huge task for women to have the cake and eat it too. And I think especially in a field like music where there's so many unknowns as opposed to a set path, it becomes even more challenging because you have to now be a risk taker and a trailblazer and a breadwinner and a childcare provider and
It's endless.
It's endless. So there's a lot. You have to surround yourself with the right people. Luckily, my husband takes care of my daughter when I'm traveling. He's a rock star. He picks her up. He coordinates with the classes. Right now, my mother-in-law is at home taking care of her while I'm here on tour. But some of us aren't as lucky, really. Here, I think in India, you can somehow have help if you need it. But some people don't have the help. Some people are single moms. Some people don't have the resources to have anybody. And so they often have to make that very hard decision of, well, touring with a band, what's that? That's like a nice to have, not a need to have. So they focus on the need to have. So I still think it's got a long ways to go. I think funding for the arts are in critical danger because there are lots of funding that have been cut. So now I know a lot of people having to make innovative ways of making ends
It's sustainable.
Yeah, period. Let alone, childcare and all of that stuff. But I think women also have had a lot of expectations historically as being the mom, the role model, the caregiver, the child producer, the consistency. And so when I'm like departing from that, everyone's like, what is she doing? She's abandoning her kid. Earlier on in my career, I had friends who were like, we have to call welfare. You're never home with your child. And I'm like, oh, please don't call welfare. I have my own career. You would never say that to a guy, who's traveling and touring the world. You would never say that.
True.
You would be like, okay, that's normal. So I'm just saying it's like there's always
So a little bit of thick skin.
Yeah, a little bit of adjustment. I would be like, whatever. It doesn't bother me anymore. It used to bother me, and now I'm just like.
No, I can imagine. I can totally imagine
Like,
what
I'm
that
not
feels
gonna,
like.
I'm
yeah.
not gonna let it get to me, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the Taylor Swift shake it off kind of thing. You just have to shake it off and move
But
on.
amazing, right? In that
Yeah.
environment that you've created your mark as a touring
It's not easy.
artist.
Well, because so many people look at it and say, "Oh, that's easy." They don't see the sacrifices you've had to make it look this easy. They only see how easy it is, and that's the truth with anything, right? You're like, "Oh my God, you're blazing a trail. You're doing tours. You're giving concerts. You're getting shows. People are buying your CDs. They're like, this is so amazing." I'm like, I'm composing at 2 a.m. after touring, coming back home because I have no other time to sit and compose. And then in the morning, I have to wake up at 6 o'clock and drop my kid off at school, do a handful of lessons, come back, and then do another show. They don't see that. They only see the highlight reel. So
yeah, like we were talking with another person who had participated in the podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's the fanciness that
it's the highlight reel.
goes out into the world.
Yeah.
You know, all the hard work, all the moving parts behind. Yeah, but so beautifully said, Charu. So for you personally, what has been the most challenging moment? Not from a gender perspective, but just very challenging time in your life, and how did you overcome it?
I just think financially to make anything of it work as a touring artist is so hard. I funded all my albums. Like 2 years ago, when my biggest album, Ragas and Ragas, came out with like sort of the best names in the world, I was like completely broke. I had no money. I was like, every single penny I was putting into this album, and every single money I was just like hoping and praying that tours come together, and we broke records. We were number 1 in countries, we're number 3 in the US, and it was very close, considered for a Grammy, which was amazing. And I got like onto the worldwide charts, which is amazing, but I literally sacrificed every penny for that, and I was exhausted. I was just like so exhausted, emotionally exhausted, financially exhausted. And then at some point I asked myself, is this all worth it? And I think every artist has been there. I think what ended up keeping me going is people just flooded my inbox. They're saying, you have created something
so remarkable,
never existed before.
Yeah.
And that sort of kept me going and saying, that is so amazing. Like the fact that I could do this, and how many people have that gift to be able to do that, or the ability to be able to do that.
And the courage.
And the courage that kept me going.
Courage. Yeah.
I mean, I would say every album always leaves me a little bit emotionally bankrupt because I give it my all. It's like going to labor every single time. It's like going to have a child every single time. And nobody sees that, you are, because it looks, the thing is, like when you listen to a Mozart symphony or Mozart opera, you're like, oh my God, it's so effortless. I mean, the guy basically died creating every single thing. Like it's so perfect, so beautiful, And here we sort of take it for granted because we put it on play and all we do is click play. So I feel like every single thing that I do, financially was a big struggle to put out Rags and Ragas, but I'm glad I got through it. And it really was very rewarding.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Charu. I think that's really incredible.
I got to work with Steve Gadd. I mean, Steve Gadd is considered the greatest drummer of the world of all time.
Yeah.
He was the drummer for Aretha Franklin and Chick Corea and Steely Dan and the Bee Gees, and he's on my album.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's a pity we don't have the piano here. If not, we would have got you to play a couple of those pieces, but at least I think we'll intersperse them. So when you're having these days of questioning yourself, Charu, what is it that you dip into to pull yourself out?
I feel that if I don't create things of beauty, I'm robbing myself of the richness of life, really. I feel that you are the magic that you see. And you can choose to see magic, or you can choose to see darkness and sort of convention. And I choose to see magic. It's just the way that I want to live my life. But I don't just choose to see it. If I choose to see it, I want to create it and bring it into the world. That's the part that I think I've always had. It's like, why just imagine it, bring it into reality? And that gives me immense satisfaction. That gives me the sense that not only did I have a goal and a vision, but I made it happen. Because so many people
took it to completion.
Yes, because so many people have goals and dreams, and very few of them actually end up doing it. Because I think almost all of us don't do it because we're scared.
That's true.
We don't know. This is an unknown. What will happen? I'm like, will happen. I mean, you're going to create an album. What will happen? Go give a concert, go tour. I mean, this is part of who you are. If you dreamed it, then it is part of you. You were meant.
Beautiful. So if you dreamed it, it's
already
a part of you.
It is part of you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have dreamed it. You would have been like, you'd be a welder or a plumber. You know, if it was there, if you're dreaming it, it was meant to be something that is part of you. You're not honoring your true self if you don't pursue it. That's the way I see things.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is selfishness that comes out very beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I don't think any artist ever does
anything for anybody.
Anything authentically for anyone. They have to do it because that's their voice and that's their calling. I think it would be kind of, I would like never expect Beethoven or Mozart to say, I wrote this piece to become Mozart. I mean that's like a very odd thing to say, you know?
Yeah,
I think they did it because they had to do it. That's the way they felt about the world. And that was their way of expressing it.
I'm quickly going to drag you down to the mundane.
The mundane. It's important.
Yeah. So what's the routine? What's the grind? And does eating, sleep, exercise, all
I
of that
actually
impact?
have now become much better at having a routine. I didn't before. But I do get up and I have a breakfast, even if it's like a fruit, something. And then I usually practice a little bit and I compose if there is bandwidth to compose. But then I have, you know, the routine of family life, like my daughter and the schooling, and then I have classes in the evening that I teach and concerts at night. So it's actually pretty structured. In the afternoon, I do give myself that amazing gift of going for a swim or exercise because I want to still keep in shape and be fit and healthy. And nowadays, I've really tried to get a good night's sleep. Even though it's like may not be that many hours, but to get some sleep and to get some rest for the next
How many
day.
hours? 6 hours? 5 hours?
If I'm lucky, 4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes when I'm really tired and traveling, I'll do 6 hours, but I just don't have that luxury. It's harder because I have so many obligations. I've become a lot better at delegating. So I recently hired someone in my music academy who's taking some of the teaching off my plate.
Right.
So when I'm traveling, he's doing a lot of the covering, the classes, which is wonderful. So I am becoming better. In order to grow, you have to delegate. You have to hire and have staff. So, which is great.
Wonderful. Now we come to your teaching that you have spoken about. You know, and I've heard that when you were a student, like, you know, your teacher was amazed at the talent and, you know, picked you up and gave you all the opportunities. So how do you identify talent today with your younger generation? Or what is it that you do to nurture them?
I have a lot of amazing students. Some who are playing their third Carnegie Hall concert at the age of 9.
Wow.
After winning competitions. And I'm lucky to be able to groom them, to guide them, to coach them, to put them in the right context, to give them exposure of recitals, etc. I take my teaching very seriously. And I always look for that spark, that excitement, you know, because talent is passion. And you can have the skill, but you have to have the curiosity. You have to always be willing to do more. The students that excite me are the ones who want to do more, who've always done more than what you've assigned them, who've explored different repertoire, who've ordered books that I never told them to order, and they come to class prepared. So those kids excite me.
Exactly.
And then I put my 150%, they put their 150%. It's just like, it's a nice give and take.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very excited because I have quite a few kids like that. They're very excited, and as a result, I in turn try to give them as many opportunities: concerts, recitals, competitions. You know, I will recommend concerts that they go to and they attend, and music they should be listening to, collaborations that could, happen, and it's been wonderful running this academy.
Here, I just want to pick on, the competitions that you talk about and the exams. So how important is that in a child's musical journey? Like,
I think it really depends on your nature. Like, I always had a healthy amount of competition. I always felt like, hey, he's playing something beautiful. I can play better than that. I always had a healthy amount of competition. I think a lot of my students get motivated when they have a goal-oriented approach. Just like when you go to a job and you have a project and a deadline, I think human beings work that way. If you give them like an endless thing and say, complete it whenever, it's not as motivating as, there's a competition, you could play in Vienna next Tuesday, finish that piece. Then they're like, okay, I'm like in for it. So I use the grades and the exams and the competitions as a way to just light a fire, because it's like your school examinations. Otherwise you can just coast and learn physics whenever, or mathematics whenever. But I think a systematized and logical and good approach is helpful and healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating, Charu. So how do you see, there's a lot that's happened, I think, in the last 25 years of your career, 30 years of your career. Where do you see this going? How do you see the next 20 years pan out?
I see myself bringing more albums, more collaborations, more creativity, and definitely taking Raga jazz to a different level, like publishing books that other people can play, introducing that to the mainstream piano repertoire, more orchestral commissions and compositions, films. I want to score for films and bring this new sonic palette to a wider audience. There's lots of possibilities, so I see all of that.
Congratulations and all the very best, Charu.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, like I was mentioning, there's no piano here.
Oh, yeah.
We tried to play one of your favorite compositions. Maybe we link it to the video. Can you tell me which one it is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the one that people always respond to is Raga number 1. It's the Kirwani Bimpalasi one. Yeah. People really love that. With the groove, it's got the pulse, it's got the jazz, and it's got the scales and the virtuosity.
I liked it
People really respond well to that. Yeah, probably that one.
Great. Wonderful. So wonderful meeting you and catching up, Charu.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
It was a great interview. You nailed so many questions. Thank you.
So friends, that was episode number 5, and we at VWP make a very conscious attempt to step outside of the corporate domain and showcase achievers from all walks of life. Conversation with Charu was delightful for its authenticity and rawness, and highlighting the phenomenal capability of a human being to convert their dreams into reality if only we trusted and believed in ourselves. The process is slow, no doubt, but the outcome, something as beautiful as the Raga jazz that comes out of Charu's piano. As promised, we're going to play snippets of Raga number 1, and a link to her YouTube channel is in the description below. So, we are just one episode away from the season finale of season 1. The next conversation is with a person who I would like to term a giver. And I'm supremely excited about that episode. So do join us for the season finale. And in the meanwhile, do like, share and subscribe to our channel, The VWomen Project, simply because we're all in it together. Thank you.